Mamas. Welcome to the Geula Mamas show. I'm Sivi Goodman, and I am a midwife, mommy, and safta. And this is the Geula Mamas show, your place for everything pregnancy, birth, and babies. Today, I am joined by
Ariella Mendlowitz.
Ariella Mendlowitz. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Ariella?
Sure. I became a mother for the first time 14 months ago, almost 14 months ago, to a beautiful baby boy. His name is Simcha. Me, my husband, and our son, we live in Ramat Beit Shemesh. Um, and just loving being a mother. It's truly just the greatest, the greatest thing, most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life,
Ariella
for
and I
sure.
go way back. So we used to work together, and I remember when she got married, and it was so nice when she had her baby. And everything did not, though, go all peaches and rosy and cream after he was born, though, right?
Absolutely. No, it was not. It was not the picture perfect. The way they portray birth and recovery in the movies. That's. No one told me my life is not a movie. It was a very painful recovery, and I was never told about this. And I think because I was unprepared for it, that made it definitely much more difficult to be able to get through it,
Hmm.
because I had no way of knowing beforehand.
So for you, what caused you to have a painful recovery?
Um, I, well, I actually don't know the um, medically exactly how much I may have torn. I don't know if I had an episiotomy. They really didn't tell me. All I know is that I had a lot of internal tearing, and um, a lot of stitches. And because of that, and no one told me that you really need to sit as much as possible. So I had family because we had a boy, so there was a lot going on for the Brit Milah, and he was the firstborn. So within a couple weeks after that, then there was the Pidyon Haben, and it was just a big whirlwind. And we had family coming in from Chul, and there were doctor's appointments, and I was constantly on my feet. I was constantly doing laundry and organizing my house and dishes, and no one told me you need to sit.
So
No one told me.
you were
I
host
was what?
you were hosting all these people.
I was hosting family from Chul, from America, and I was hosting people that wanted to come over and see the baby and hold him, and no one said the words to me, you need to sit down.
Wow.
My husband was amazing. He really, really, he took his job as new father very seriously,
Hmm.
but and he was very gracious and took over as much as he could. But the words, Ariella, you need to sit down in order to recover, were never said to me. It wasn't it wasn't something I couldn't even. It seems so obvious now. It seems like, of course, you just gave birth, you need to sit down, you need to relax, but no one said those words. And I think that prolonged my recovery. It made it much more difficult to recover, unfortunately.
I
So
mean, it would seem to me that even if you didn't have those painful stitches, that you could have become emotionally exhausted, even if you had the
absolutely.
perfect birth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The birth, thank God, was relatively easy. I know women who have gone through much more difficult births than I did. But I was also my first experience, and I didn't know what I was doing. Everything was brand new. My mother had not given birth in Israel, so there was only so much information she could give me. And everything was just a learning experience from start to finish. I'm still learning as far as bureaucracy and uh, learning what foods to give, and how to transition. Everything is brand new, uh, And that makes it, much more challenging because it's so new. Exciting, but challenging.
Did you go to childbirth classes? Did you have a doula? Did you have any sort
I
of?
had I had a doula. My husband's chavrusa's wife is a
Mhm.
doula. She, Baruch Hashem, has 9 children of her own, so she's very experienced. And as a doula, she's very experienced, and I trusted her immensely. But I did not attend childbirth classes, and I only spoke to her one time before the birth itself.
Mhm.
And there was, she explained to me the the technical aspects of birth, about dilation and about the baby descending. And while I was in labor, she inspired me about davening for other people and saying a certain parak of Tehillim in order to have the baby descend. It was a very spiritual birth, but there were, the technical, the certain aspects of it that she did not cover. I don't know if I just didn't know the right questions to ask. Perhaps she did say them and I don't remember because it was a whirlwind of information for a new mother. But I felt very overwhelmed by the amount of information I did not know going into being a mother. It was very, very overwhelming for me.
So along this journey, at what point did you start your blog? You told me about. First of
So
all,
I
what's
started
your blog? We'll put it in the show notes, everyone. But what's the name of your blog?
recipesofmotherhood.blogspot.com.
I love that name.
Thank you. um, so I started the blog, I think, when my son was about 7 months old. And I had joined several Facebook groups that were dedicated to moms asking questions, moms sharing stories, moms venting about what it is to be a mother, whether you're a new mother or a veteran mother. And I realized through being in these groups that I wasn't alone in the information that I didn't have. I wasn't alone in feeling like my life, like I said earlier, I thought that, the way the movies portrayed it seemed pretty good to me. And here I was, and there was so much information that I didn't have. And I realized that I wasn't alone. So what my intention behind the blog was to be a voice for new mothers or even veteran mothers for whom it's been several years, perhaps mothers who had different experiences, different types of births. For example, one of my blog entries, I talk about my painful recovery, and there could be mothers who had 3 babies with no pain, meaning no stitching, no tearing, but then their fourth was like, it was like something so painful that they never knew. And maybe they can use the information that I'm sharing, or even just a voice that resonates with them, that understands what they're going through, because I didn't have that. And there's still some things I don't have that for. So my writing is a way to get out my feelings, as well as to hopefully be um, a sounding board for other women going through the same thing.
Yeah, wow, it's amazing. So,
Thank you.
and at some point, you also started a baby gemach, you told me? What is that?
I did. The baby gemach, it's called My Sweet Baby.
Which is also
I
a
love.
cute name. I love it.
Thank you.
If
I
I
said I
need
love
to
being
make
a mother.
something, if I need to
Love
make
being a mother.
something, I know who to call.
So My Sweet Baby is really all things baby. I've had people donate cribs. I've had double strollers. I've had car seats. But the majority of the donations are smaller items: clothing, blankets. We had someone donate several unused handmade crocheted blankets, which are beautiful and warm and really just so special. Some toys, really all kinds. I had someone donate a pump for a woman, for any mother that needed to pump. nursing pills, really all kinds of baby related items, things that are anywhere from, you can get clothing for relatively inexpensive to you can't find a pump for less than several hundred shekel. And my goal is to provide these items for women who otherwise would be struggling to afford them. I don't give things away in the gemach. The gemach has an incentive that it's for purchase because we don't want anyone taking from others, meaning that a woman shouldn't take more than she really truly needs. So that's one way that sets my gemach apart, is that, thinking that women that come should think about the other women like them so that nobody should be left without something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I really love it. It's really wonderful to
So
meet.
they purchase it at a reduced cost.
Exactly. Purchase at a reduced cost. And the beauty of running a gemach, and it's something that's such a need in the community, which I wasn't even aware um, uh, that it was such a need. I just thought it would be a fun thing to do. And friends of mine and people who have come have said, we need something like this. The community doesn't have anything like this.
In Ramat.
Um, in Ramat Beit Shemesh Gimel, in
In
Ramat Beit Shemesh Aleph is a nearby neighborhood.
Mhm.
They have a couple, but in Ramat Beit Shemesh Gimel, where I live, it's not a. It's there's no other gemach like mine. So that's something that's really very special, and it's nice to meet all these women and both Israelis and Anglos that come and they tell their friends and they tell their family. So it's really very, very special to be able to help other mothers in that way.
So we're going to put Ariella's contact information also in the show notes.
Please.
If you have something to donate, or if you would like to come and go shopping in her gemach, that's amazing.
Sure.
When you said
Thank you.
nursing pillows, that made me think about it, because that's something that was more or less got into style when I was at the end of my nursing journey. But I see all the time in my community, I live up north, and people are always asking when they have babies if anybody has a nursing pillow.
Yes, it's a very popular request.
Yeah.
Very popular.
And the pump, as you said, is so expensive, and the cozy
They
blanket.
are.
Beautiful. Wow.
Thank you. It's very rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
So between the gemach and my writing, I like to feel that I'm in some way um, giving back. Spreading, paying it forward, giving back, however you want to say it. Uh, the the bond between mothers is a very strong one because we may be completely different people, have different beliefs, different backgrounds, but being bonded for motherhood, there's no bond quite like it. It doesn't matter the background, regardless of race, religion, belief systems. Every mother is connected in the fact that we are mothers, and we're all going through this journey of raising, what starts out as a tiny helpless human being to, God willing, a fully capable grown adult. And we're all along this journey together, and none of us knows, it's not something that comes with a manual. So we're all here to help each other out, to teach each other. So I feel that writing my blog and by having this gemach and by meeting these women who are either new mothers or veteran mothers, I'm able to bond, and actually through the Facebook groups as well. Um, I'm able to bond with these women who I'm always learning from, and I hope that I can pass on some of the things that I've learned in my short 14 months as a
Well, I
mother.
think it's actually very unique because, as I was saying, I I was a new mom a really long time ago. Okay, my oldest daughter's turning 28.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a while since I was a new mom. And as much as I might try to put myself there, or I may have experience working with new moms, It's not the same as being a new mom. So the fact that you don't have many years of experience with this, I
Right.
feel like gives you an advantage to be able to share things while they're fresh in your mind. You have
Mm-hmm.
your own personal perspective, and you're being a new mom in today's days. 28 years
Right.
ago, things were different,
Right.
right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate that. I definitely feel sometimes, what am I doing? I don't have the experience. I'm raising one child, and um, my experience could be very different than other people. And sometimes I feel, that I may not have much to share. So I appreciate, you're saying that the fact that I'm closer to that new motherhood that's fresh in my mind is definitely
Yeah, yeah,
very
it's
helpful.
really, it's really, really special. Absolutely. So
Right.
you had mentioned something about after you gave birth, right? And being disconnected from other young moms, other people, the people that you used to socialize with.
Right.
How did that go?
Well, the disconnect was very difficult. If you're asking, what it was like to suddenly be cut off from other
Well, how
from
was your
other adults.
experience? I'm not sure that everybody would have. So, what was your experience about being cut off?
Okay. So, I used to work a full-time job. I was there 9 to 6. Before that, my other job was 10 to 6. Before that, I was in university. Like any young adult, you're constantly surrounded by friends and peers and people, and it's human beings. I studied psychology, and human beings thrive on interaction. And then you go from that whirlwind, and especially the excitement of the first pregnancy, and then you give birth, and then there's a whirlwind of attention, and everyone wants to hold the baby and help you, and everyone is there for you. And then the first month is over, and I actually wrote a blog exactly about this topic. That And then the first month is over, and then family goes back to their lives, and your friends have their own families, and your husband goes back to work at a full-time job, and it's just you and your baby every day for hours on end. And I was still recovering, and I had a house full, like, thank God I had a house full of uh, presents that had to be organized and sorted, like clothing and all kinds of baby stuff. And I was left in this big, messy house with a newborn alone. And it was very, I don't even like have a word for what I felt isolated. The first couple weeks, I had a family member who called me every couple days. My doula called me every few days to see how everything was going, how I was feeling. But after a month, it was like I was dropped, like a hot potato. I was dropped. And except for a couple closer, my mother um, and my sister, and maybe a cousin here or there. The newness is gone, and I felt like being the center is similar to getting married. You get engaged, and then there's party after party, and then there's the wedding, and then there's a week of Sheva Brachot, and then it's over and you go back to your life, except this time you're responsible for someone else's life and changing diapers.
At
What?
least the husband can communicate and have a conversation. Your baby might be the most
Exactly.
cutest thing you've ever met,
Exactly. He was, yeah.
right?
Right, that's exactly it, that you lack conversation. And it was really then that I started discovering these Facebook groups, because I asked my friends, I said, I feel like you guys have dropped me. And they said, no, we just wanted to give you the space that you needed. We thought that, you have a newborn and you need the space. But what I really needed was support and attention. And, for someone to step in and say, let's have a conversation. I don't even know, talk about anything. It doesn't have to be baby related. I'll talk about the weather. I don't care. But I needed that adult interaction, and I wasn't getting that. And that was very hard for me. That was very, it was very painful. So I'm not someone who really watches a lot of TV, and I found myself watching a lot of TV in those days, and uh, which I feel guilty about because it's not who I am, and I felt like I had nowhere else to turn, so I let my mind zone out, and it was a difficult period for me, the first few months after my son was born, until I really tried making more of an effort. But before that, yeah, it was a very big challenge, and I felt very isolated. It was very hard for me.
Yeah, it can be really overwhelming. I feel like
It can, and no one tells you about that. No one tells you about the isolation. Women that go on maternity leave, you always think that it's so nice, and you just have this time to bond with your baby, which it was. It was nice, and I'm glad I had that time with him. But there was a huge chunk of my life that went from everyday interaction with adults to nothing.
right, with a
So
lot
yeah,
of
it
adults.
was
I mean, all the
a
people,
lot of adults.
classes, and coming and going and traveling and
Right,
workspace.
right, 100%. So yeah, so that was a very difficult time in my life that, one of the many things I wish someone had told me about to prepare for, because maybe then I would have, um, maybe I would have organized something for myself. Um, and a 1 month old is too young for baby classes for mommy and me, way too young. So I didn't have any choices. My friends were working and my husband was working and family was out of town. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I, thank God I'm past that stage. But when I was in it, it was just a never ending cycle of diapers and bottles and spit up and then the cycle would start over again. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, I really can hear what you're saying.
yeah,
Now, for yourself, how did you get out of that? How did you start to, like you said, you started to sort of pull yourself together? How did that go?
right. Well, it definitely started. My son is a winter baby, so when the weather started to get nicer, I forced myself to get out of the house. We went on walks together, and when he was old enough to sit in the baby swing, I would go to the park and I'd put him in the baby swing, and while I was there, I would see other people, and I didn't know them, but even a friendly, like a smile from a fellow mom who's pushing her kid in the swing or her toddler's going down the slide, even that can feel reassuring, like I had that connection. And then actually, the more Facebook groups that I joined of these mothers, that definitely helped because, it gave me confidence to be able to relate to these women. And then I could talk to my friends. My friends started, because once it was like about 4 or 5 months in, they kind of came back in the sense that it wasn't so new anymore, so they didn't feel like I was so fragile, and they were okay, to come back into my life. From their perspective, I would have been fine with it, but whatever.
And maybe well, they came back into your life, but also maybe
Right.
you were going out more, so you also went back into their life.
Sure. Sure. To be honest, it's because there's still that a bit of a fog. It could be that um maybe I misremember. I want to be fully honest. Maybe I misremember it, and it could be that I didn't reach out as much as I think I did. And it could be maybe their impression was that I did not want that interaction. And it could be because you know what? It is very overwhelming to have a newborn, and especially when it's your first, and there's a whole new um, responsibility, whole new barrel of responsibilities. So it could be, I want to be fair to the people in my life uh, who it's possible that they did reach out and perhaps I wasn't as receptive to it. And because I was in that fog, maybe I don't remember it as well as possible. So I want to be fair to them. Um, but yeah, and then slowly but surely, within about 4 months, 5 months, I definitely came back to myself, and I started writing, and I started having play dates with friends whose babies were around the same age.
Nice.
And then slowly, and now, thank God, it really, due to a lot of different circumstances that changed in our life, both mine and my husband's lives, we're in a really great place. Thank God, socially. So
That's
it's funny to remember those times last year.
you actually reminding me when I had baby number 5. So I was working, but I was working from home, and he was little. So you're right. I actually made these once a week meetups, and it
Right.
was babies of all ages. I think there was someone who came without a baby. Who cares? And we just did
Hmm.
morning group meetups, and it was really really nice.
That sounds really nice, and it's something I wish someone here would do. In our neighborhood, there is no mommy and me. There is no, there was no option. There were no opportunities for interaction like that. So it's, at least in our neighborhood, it's the kind of thing that you have to go out there and make it for yourself,
Well, that's
and
what I
that's
did.
hard.
That's actually what I
Good
did.
for you,
I wasn't a new mom.
right?
So, being at baby number 5 after 20 years or so of parenting, maybe it's just
Right?
my nature, but I was like, I want company. I don't want to be alone
Yeah,
all day with the diapers. All right, who wants
right.
to come over? So the first time it was by me, and then at the end of it, I said, who's hosting next week?
That's really nice.
So yeah, I'm happy that I did that because it can be no matter how many babies you have. And for me, it was after a very big break, and I had many years. My kids were all out in school,
Hmm.
and I just had this little
Right.
guy, and it can be really isolating otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I remember it well.
Hmm.
Or- Yeah. But, like I said, thank God now, I'm working at a part-time job. My husband opened his own business, so he's working from home. And our son is in a GON from 8:15 to 3, which is, we have found, is so, um, it's just so good for all of us. We have found an amazing balance, an amazing way to ensure that we all get the time that we need, and our son gets the as much attention as we can give him. When he's home, he gets all of our attention because he's in GON, which means that we've had that time to be adults. So thank God, I feel like we're in a really great place now after months of, that fog and being disoriented and not knowing our lefts from our rights. So
And I don't know
it's a
if
good feeling.
sometimes the child or where I've been holding, at least as a parent, there have been some times where I had a child at like 1.5, and I just wanted them to be with me. And other kids, I felt like friends, like you said, I had some my time, and
Hmm.
um, I don't even know if it had to do with the stages in my life or just the kid and their nature. Some kids you can really see
Right.
how they need that
Hmm. Absolutely.
with it.
Absolutely. Well, now we see that our son is very social, much more than either of us is. We enjoy being with friends, but he loves people. And being in a GON for him, it's like, it's so what he needs, and it nurtures him, and we've seen him grow so much because he's been surrounded by babies his age. Something I would like to address that I found very, unfortunately, it's a very common occurrence,
Hmm.
is what we call mom shaming. I don't know if you're familiar with that term.
Unfortunately, yeah. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
And so I was not familiar with that. And unfortunately, in the short time that I've been a mother, I've been mom shamed easily 6 or 7 times.
Serious?
Whether it was
I'm
my
old, so I didn't, it wasn't so in style, I guess. It was more like the bubbies would say, how could you do that? But the
no, everyone, no, all different ages. I had a father mom shame me because I made a choice not to nurse. That was my personal choice. And I was mom shamed and told that my son would never be as smart as his children are because they were nursed. And I was told that I will never have a bond with my son like the way he and his wife bond with their children. He didn't nurse.
that is shocking.
It was so upsetting to me. And I'm trying to think. I was in the grocery store and a woman felt the need to, like, she saw my son didn't have his pacifier in, and
Hmm.
it was like hanging from his, from a clip on his sweater.
Yeah.
And she felt the need to take his pacifier and put it in his mouth. Things like that, like little moments like that where someone makes the parenting decision for you or makes you feel guilty for the decision you may or may not have made. It is so prevalent. And I don't know when it became okay in society to tell a mother, I know better than you do. I know your child better than you do. Um, you know, someone who tried to give my son cake when he was 6 months old. We were not giving him any sugar. And she, thought she was being funny and gave him cake. And I confronted her later. And moments like that, this is something that no one prepares you for. No one told me that, to prepare to defend my decisions about how to raise my son. And I feel that this is a very important topic because it happens all the time. It happens to my friends, happens to my family members. It happens, you said that you're familiar with it. I don't know what your stories are, but I'm prepared to bet that they were very painful for you.
Well, I think that it became much more prevalent today, and I'm trying to think historically why that would be. So, when
Right,
I was a young mom, right, there was no internet readily available. You
right,
had some magazines, you had, your friends talking, but I think it was clear that everybody was just doing the best they can, doing what they knew with their family,
right,
doing what their mom did. Today, with the internet, you can research anything and you can make really deep decisions about what you really deeply personally feel is the right decision.
mm-hmm,
And then it's not so hard to take that leap and say, well, if I feel that's the right decision, then your decision's wrong and your decision's wrong and your decision is wrong. And that really
right,
did not, it just didn't exist 20 something years ago.
right. I don't know if it's only because of the internet, though. I experienced mom shaming. All the examples I gave were in person, but
But
I
I'm saying
definitely had
people
my fair
got the
share.
information, right? Like this family made the decision
Right,
to breastfeed their baby, okay? Based on research and experience and internet and whatever it was, right? They looked into it. It wasn't just because, like, when I was a new mom, I made much of my decisions based on what I had seen my mother or other adults doing. I may have read a book, I may have read 5 books, right? But it wasn't this constant, almost because of these Facebook groups that you mentioned, which can be so good, they can also be
mm-hmm.
very cliquish. So you'll
It's
have,
true.
right?
It's true.
I've experienced that kind of thing with just like a diet that I went on, a certain type of eating plan that I was on. There are certain Facebook groups that are very welcoming, and you can go on there. You can ask your questions. There are other Facebook groups with the same umbrella, name, the same topic. But if you say anything that's slightly out of line of what they believe, they will attack you.
I
And
know.
right,
Yeah. It's awful. It's awful, but I never felt as if I had been a subject of that criticism until I was a mother.
Yeah. Yeah, because
I'd never experienced that.
if somebody doesn't like your food choices, it's much easier to deal with than when somebody attacks your parenting. You're already doing the
Right,
best you can. You love
right,
your child in a type of love that this person will never understand, because this is
right,
your baby and your
right,
life, and you want the best for them. And for someone else to
right,
come along and
right.
then it's like stepping on your, like, you're already insecure enough, right?
Yeah,
Right? And then they just
yeah,
like step on your hangnail and, step on your already injured toe.
right. No, absolutely. It's so just one example for me. So regarding my decision not to nurse, it wasn't from the get-go. It was another thing, part of my life that, no one had prepared me for, about the struggle to nurse, because it had always looked so easy for everyone I knew that it did it. So I posted in one of these Facebook groups just how much I was struggling to nurse, struggling to bond. I would cry, my son would cry. It was a really painful experience. And I had a woman write to me personally, like private message me, to further question my decision, and to try to understand why it was so hard for me, because it was so easy for her. And I was 5 weeks postpartum, and I didn't even know what to say to her. I said, listen, I don't know what to tell you. I'm happy for you. It's so easy for you. It's not easy for me. And she would not leave me alone. I just had to end the conversation. I stopped replying to her because I just couldn't take it anymore.
Oh my
So
goodness.
this mom shaming is just, it's too common, whether it's online, offline. It's awful. It's awful. It makes you feel inadequate when you're already, like you said, before, you're already doing the best that you can.
And you're already feeling inadequate enough and just trying to like stay above water.
Just just to have, I didn't eat for about 2 weeks after my son was born because I didn't have the time. It was like either I sleep or I eat. So I chose to sleep. Like you said, you're trying to keep your head above the water. You don't have time for these critics who think that they knew better than you. It's
Absolutely.
one thing to give a suggestion. It's another thing to push your agenda onto a new mom. And so that was, still is something that I struggle with, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm very blessed, really. I think it has to do with something with the information age that we're living in, because I really almost didn't have that. I may have, from time to time, have had someone give me an opinion or something here and there,
Right.
but not what goes on today with the mom shaming. I know it exists, but I really didn't have that personally, and that must be so hard.
It
I don't
is.
even
It
want to
is. And
imagine.
my stories are not the worst of it. There are other mothers on these Facebook groups who have shared their stories of dirty looks that they've gotten because they let their child have a lollipop, or you know just voices of criticism everywhere they turn.
And it can be either way, because if you don't let
Right.
your kid have a lollipop, like you said, you didn't want to give your son sugar, and then
Right.
somebody's questioning that decision, right?
Right.
And then if you give your kid if you give your kid a lollipop, someone questions. So you can't even please everybody, and
No, you can't.
somebody always seems to feel like they know better, they understand your life better. It's very strange.
It is. It is. And I wish that this was spoken about more, because then maybe change could come about. Maybe people would do something about it and, check themselves. I have a family member who had a baby very, very short, very close to when my son was born. And it was also her first. And once in a while, she'll come to me for a little advice. And I always make sure to say, look, this is what works for us. This is what works for me. This is the method that I used. If it works for you, great. If not, that's fine. You'll find a method. I don't know why it's so hard for men and women to take the same perspective of what works for one person may not work for somebody else. And it's not a difficult thing to say. What worked for me may not work for you, or what works for you isn't what works for me. But to each his own. There's a phrase that a lot of millennials are using now in America. You do you. You do you. And even though it sounds silly, the meaning of it is you do what works for you.
Yeah.
I'll do what works for me. And I wish that more people could think like that and could, you know,
I heard this beautiful
I
quote.
I wish that I wish that more, even mother. It's funny because a lot of the criticism comes from other mothers who themselves have probably experienced criticism. So as moms, we should be united. We should really, really like strengthen this bond between us. And instead, it's mothers who are unfortunately guilty of a lot of shaming.
Absolutely.
Why didn't you just let your baby cry it out, when you were sleep training? Why is the baby not wrapped in 3 layers and only 2 layers? Yeah. So,
But as I was saying, it can go either way, because you're going to have one mom who's mom shaming
right,
you. Why didn't you let your baby cry it out? And the other one says,
right,
why don't you do attachment parenting? How could you let your baby cry? It just
right,
it depends on which way they decided to go. It takes
right.
a certain amount of maturity to be able to
Yes.
say you do you.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, for me, I don't find it difficult to say to someone, this is what worked for me. If it's not how you choose to parent, that's okay. I don't know why it's so difficult for other people to say the same thing. I don't
I
know.
heard this amazing quote from a Rav from the 1800s. I wish I knew who it was. I don't. So it's basically you do you. So he says,
Yeah.
if I am me because you are you, and you are you because I am me, then I am
Mm-hmm.
not me and you are not you. But if you are you because you are you and I am me because I am me, then I am me and you are you. Right? Which is exactly what you were
Right.
saying. This is do what works for you. and
Absolutely.
and everyone should find their own path. No, we have Kohen, Levi, Yisrael, women, men, each of the Shvatim, everybody
Right.
in our Masorah has their own path. And if
Right.
if the Kohen says, "Oh, I want to be, doing the Levi job," then who's doing the Kohanim job? And the Yisrael has to do his job.
Right.
Everybody, right? We only can do the 613 mitzvot by working together.
Absolutely.
Right? I feel like
Absolutely.
that's so much, even also with chesed. One person bakes cakes. That's not me these days because we don't eat sugar. So it's not me baking cakes these days. But I like to help someone learn how to pay their electric bill in Hebrew because I'm so happy that I know how to pay my electric bill in Hebrew. So I'm happy to do that mitzvah. And that's
Right.
also another way that it's so easy to feel guilty that I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough. But it's not. I'm doing my piece. And when
Right.
it comes to raising children, somehow people think that all children, that there is some one best way to raise all children.
Right. No,
And
there is not. My mother used to say, and still to this day says, both about herself and about me. She said there is no one good way. There's no, I want to say her phrase exactly right. There isn't one good way to be a good mother. There isn't one way to be a good mother. I had to get that right. Which is true. It's not one way. There's shivim panim Torah. If we were all uniform, life would be boring.
life would be
Life
boring.
would be very boring indeed. We're all different.
So looking back now, if you can be your own best friend, that
Right.
person that you wish was there, what would you tell to new mom Ariella after birth? You couldn't change the stitches. That is what happened. We don't know why.
Right.
But what would you tell yourself? How would you have changed things? if you could go back?
That's a very, very good question. The first thing I would have told myself is to sit down, to let everyone else do everything. It might not feel like it hurts very much now, but you're going to pay for it in 2 weeks when you're still not healed. So definitely, as far as the physical pain of recovery, just tell, ladies, sit down. Let other people do it for you. And if you're embarrassed, and if you feel like, if you feel maybe a little childish or a little strange letting people do other things for you, that's okay. Let them do things for you. You just brought a human being into the world. Chances are you're not getting very much sleep, and it's really, really important that you let and people want to be helpful. People offer and say, what can I do? What can I do? Tell them, delegate. That's something I really, hope that I'll remember for the next time around. As far as the isolation, it's hard to say because everyone feels different. Some people really want, those few months of solitude and peace and quiet. But if I had to tell myself, I think I would just say, try to talk to one person a day. That isn't my husband. Make plans to talk to this cousin once a week and this friend once a week. And that way, that you've at least had some adult interaction amidst all the diaper changes and the spit up accidents. And overall, I want to listen to myself, and I just say, you got this, mama. Like, your baby is healthy and thriving and happy, and I think I'm going to cry because it's so amazing to be his mother and watch him grow and know that both my husband and myself are the reason for that. And I get very emotional about being a mom, and I love it. And I think I would just tell all new mothers out there, and even veteran moms who feel overwhelmed and drowning, and even in things that I've yet to experience, you got this. And your child loves you. And they love you for being, they love you for being the best you that you can be. And there was something really beautiful I saw. It said, I think it was a mother who wrote this. She said, she went to her son's school play. I think it was in America. She went to her son's school play. And when she got there, she saw that her son was looking around. He wasn't looking for just anybody. He was looking for her. And when he saw her, he smiled and his whole face lit up. Your child.
These are good tears.
Sorry.
No,
I'm sorry. Your child doesn't need anyone but you. Your child needs you. And I think that that's the best feeling in the world. There's no better feeling.
That's also
than knowing that your baby
to give
wants
yourself
you.
food and to give yourself some sleep and to make sure
that too. All of that's
that
important
gives your
too.
child a much better mom.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes
Absolutely.
when all my kids, I feel like everybody wants me. My husband wants me. My kids, everybody like almost is pulling me into different directions.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of like freaking out one time, I said, I'm the most popular girl in class. Everybody wants me.
That's
I'm
a
like,
great perspective.
And
That's
everybody
a great perspective.
Right? Just changing that perspective. We all just
right. Yes.
And I didn't feel negatively pulled. I just felt like, oh, wow, I'm so great. It really changed the whole mood in the house. Yeah, like,
as my husband likes to say, it's a good problem. It's a good problem.
Good problem.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. So, what tips would you have other than the things we just spoke about, which were amazing? Are there anything that we forgot that you would want to tell new moms these are the things I wish I knew before I had my baby. Did we leave anything out?
Um, this is very this is something I think you can only know once you have a baby. They need so much stuff. Babies need so much stuff. And I'm a minimalist. I do not like having stuff. Um, I was overwhelmed by the sheer amount of things that came into my house.
I
So
would
just
have
be
to
prepared.
I would have to argue with that a little bit because I've learned a lot about minimalism and I've always
Yeah,
been drawn to like just less stuff. I don't like having a lot of stuff. And I
right,
wonder how much of that stuff your baby needs or your relatives want to give you or you think you need. I actually want to do a whole show about
right.
that and go over those, those long lists of baby stuff that you see.
Well, even just the diapers and the clothes and the toys and the changing pads and the diaper bag and the stroller and the car seat, even that already, even the basics.
Even some basics things. I
A
mean,
lot
some
of
of those things
equipment.
I would cut out, but yeah, that's pretty basic. And you have this
Yeah,
little tiny person with all these
I know.
contraptions. And I
I
do like
know.
the swing or the jumper, and all there's so much stuff. It's
Yes. Yeah, so that was definitely something I was not prepared for. Um, I,
about the
you
toy.
know, there's,
Second, wait, I want to give you a great tip. Okay, my
okay.
daughter was, I'll say, about 8, 9 months old one year on Hanukkah, and I bought like a rattle, like a maraca, like a little plastic maraca that made this lovely shape
Mm-hmm.
sound,
I
right?
bet she loved it.
She loved it. I wrapped it up and she ripped open the wrapping paper. She was so happy. But by the next morning, where was it? On the floor. She's only 9 months old. She's not going to play with it forever. So I
Right.
had this great idea. Second night of Hanukkah, I wrapped up the maraca. I gave her, and she ripped it open, and she was so happy. Well, she got that maraca every single night of Hanukkah.
That's
As a
amazing.
minimalist mama, I figured, you know what? This is working. I'm just gonna go with it. She was
That's
happy.
amazing.
She was so happy.
That's so funny. That's very smart. That's very
And
smart.
it
We
kind of happened by accident the first day. I wasn't necessarily planning a present every day, but it was so much
right.
fun to see. She was. I mean, you can't do it when they get too much older than nine.
Right, of course. Of course.
But she was shocked, excited, and thrilled beyond belief every night, 8 nights. She was so happy.
Right. Absolutely. Um and then another piece of advice, something that I wish, obviously I could talk about my son from dusk till dawn. I could talk about him for hours and hours and hours. But I think that new mothers, especially after, so close after birth, as far it's not only enough to not be alone, but the conversations that you want to talk about something other than the baby. So a great piece of advice that I hope that I can continue to follow is, you know talk to a new mother the way that you talk to a friend. Talk about anything. You don't have to make conversation revolve around the baby, because I would have been okay to talk about anything. In fact, sometimes it would have been nice just to, talk about something else, to remember that I'm more than a mother. I love being a mother. It's been the best thing to ever happen to me. But sometimes it's nice to talk about other things. And perhaps any of your viewers, my own friends, appreciate being reminded, that they're human beings, who have a lot to say about a lot of different topics. And,
Wow.
we like to talk about more than changing diapers and how much the baby ate that day and how many times you had to change their clothes.
Right? Wow. That is some really, really good advice because it does feel that way sometimes when you want to visit somebody and you have to think of something about the baby. And it
Right.
does feel like almost there's this obligation to just continue talking only about their baby or,
Right.
you know, or even
Right.
kids
No,
in
there's
general.
there's lots of things to talk about, and sometimes a new mother just wants to, just wants to be reminded that she's more than, that she has a lot to contribute to a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
um, besides for, besides for the things, daily childcare.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As wonderful as it is, there's a lot more to the woman,
Absolutely.
especially a Jewish mother who, we've all been taught about how beautiful it is to bring new Jewish neshamas into the world, and it is, and I'm not denying that. But sometimes, a mom might want to think about other things in her life,
Well, you had
politics.
you all the way up until the time your baby was born. There was a lot of you there,
Yeah,
and it doesn't just disappear because you have this baby who's wonderful
right,
and we love them. But all of that stuff that was you is still there and it's still important.
right.
And not only for the other people, but also for yourself to give your own self permission to talk about something. It might feel almost disloyal or something to talk
That's
about anything.
exactly the word. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's a
Amazing.
strange feeling, but it's there.
So I have a question for
Definitely.
you, Ariella. If you can imagine, like close your eyes, take a deep breath, and imagine that you're standing in front of all the women, like at Har Sinai, at the women's section, and you have all the women of Am Yisrael before you, and all the neshamot of Neshei Yisrael that will ever be born, they're all in front of you. What is the first thing that just comes to mind if you have one thing you can say to all the women of Am Yisrael without thinking too much?
Without thinking too much. Honestly, just support and applause. Um, Being a mother is a challenge. It's going from independence to, um, from being self sustaining and independence to you have this little helpless human being who needs you at every moment of the day. They need something from you. So I give a lot of support and applause to all the mothers of Am Yisrael who are, who every day are caring for their children, who are raising the next generation, who go to bed exhausted and they wake up exhausted, and they wake up 6 times in the night and they're exhausted. And so much love and respect to all the mothers, because now that I get it, now that I'm there, I empathize. And yasher koach is not a big enough word. Yasher kochachen, it's not enough. So much appreciation, and if I may, a small plug into my own mother, appreciation for what she did, and you know, married women, single mothers, everyone who is going through this journey of raising children and raising Jewish children. Kol hakavod, you're amazing, and thank you for what you do.
This is not like I'm a new mom or something, but I feel like I got so much koach from that. It's like
I was talking to you.
you really were talking to me. Thank you. It's beautiful.
Oh, my
Before we
pleasure.
go,
It's something that you only understand once you're there. There was an article I read, maybe it was more of a blog entry of a woman who said to all my friends who had babies before I did, I'm sorry I didn't get it. And
mm,
she goes on to describe, she didn't understand what it means, to have someone watch your baby so you could take a shower.
oh,
She didn't understand how wonderful it is to have someone make dinner for you in those early weeks. So I feel the same way to all my friends, to all my family. I didn't get it, and now I do. I get it now, and it's amazing. There is no greater job in the world, no job more demanding than that of being a mother.
isn't
And
it like when people say, "Oh, you're only a mother," you know,
no, no,
like
ah, don't get me started. But you're a mother. You're a mother. You're a mother. It's the best. The best.
Amazing.
No question.
All right. Well, you awesome mothers, the Geula Mamas out there, I can't let you go without presents. And I do love the Geula Mama magnets. So we're gonna pick 2 lucky winners. The way you get to be entered in our raffle here is simply by joining the Geula Mamas Facebook group. So we have all our members here, and I have pulled out the lovely Arlen Boltax. Yay!
Yay!
And Arlen's going to get a magnet that says, "Watch me bring the Geula." This is like a twofold thing. First of all, if someone says, "Oh, the things you're doing, you're only a mother. What are you doing already?" Especially when your kids say, "You're such a bad mother." You're not up to that, Ariella, yet. But it's a good sign. It's a good sign. It means that you're doing a good job. So you say, "No, the thing I'm doing is bringing the Geula. The thing I'm doing is absolutely amazing." So you just sit there and you watch me bring the Geula. The women of Am Yisrael, we brought the Geula from Mitzrayim, and we're gonna bring the Geula again. So Arlen, this is for you. And our second winner of the day is Ruth Arkush. Yay, Ruth. I have given up worrying about how people's last names are said because last names are so hard. So, yay, Ruth. You have won a magnet that says, "I am so precious. Hashem loves me more than I can ever imagine." That is a Geula Mama's affirmation. And it is so true. Hashem makes each of us. He loves us. We are here exactly as we are supposed to be. We're all here with our different amazing qualities. All the women of Am Yisrael are absolutely so amazing. And you are so precious. Well, that is the show. Thank you so much for being here, Ariella.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
It was so nice.
This is very great. Thank you.
I learned so much. It's like you said, "Oh, I'm just a new mom." I learned so much from you. And thank you, everybody. Please have a great day. And remember that you are loved. And I love you. And Ariella loves you. We all love you. And you're amazing.